Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inclusive Conversations by DEI of Town of Westford. This is your host, Anjali Rajput, and my co-host today is the co-chair of DEI, Joe Diamond.
Thank you. Hello.
Our guest today is Catherine Clear, who is a member of school committee and is a liaison for our DEI committee. So please welcome Catherine Clear.
Hey, thank you.
So Catherine, as the Neurodiversity Week is coming up on March 18th until March 24th, we believe that you have a deep interest in this topic, and hence you are our special guest going to focus on the neurodiversity, what it is, why does that interest you. So first of all, let's just get to understand who you are, right? So give us a little bit of insight into your life, who you are, and then we'll take it deep into neurodiversity.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for inviting me along, although I might have, hijacked your March podcast to coincide with the month, so I appreciate it. Like for anybody who knows or can hear from the accent, I didn't grow up in America. I grew up in Ireland, but I am an elementary teacher, and I moved here with my husband and 3 kids 8 years ago. And I have now a 7th grader and twin 4th graders. And I always loved education, but always had a really big interest in current affairs and politics and stuff. Again, Irish, where it's a hobby. And when we moved here, I was really intrigued by how much, the town and how the towns work and town government. And I thought it was something really unique in terms of schools. Ireland, it's a little bit different. We do have local governance, but it's on a kind of a bigger scale. And I always kind of felt school committee would be a really interesting place eventually to kind of engage in and learn more about the system. And I've been on it now for 3 years. I'm serving as the vice chair and have loved every minute of it, and have really loved once we moved to Westford and settled down. It was definitely where our kids were going to grow up. And so, yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Certainly today's topic is neurodiversity, and we thought it might be great to start with you helping us to understand what that term means.
Awesome. Well, I will say I'm no expert, but, through my experience as a teacher in the classroom and our own family, I've come to learn a lot more about it in recent years. The term neurodiversity really means different brains. No 2 brains think alike, work alike, are the same. And that, I suppose we often kind of say, with neurotypical and neurodiverse is that to assume somebody sees a situation or would react in a situation just like you and make assumptions about it. And so that's when we talk about neurodiversity. It's really understanding that there's differences in how the brain, like on a molecular level, works, and kind of accommodating and understanding it, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
One of the episodes that we do is something we call Get to Know Your DEI Member.
Oh, okay.
You serve on the DEI committee as a sort of a liaison to the school committee.
Yeah.
We would love to hear a little later about your work in the schools, but can you delve into what are the how would you help us understand the different neurodiversities?
Okay. So if you think, and these are terms a lot of people are probably more familiar with, Down syndrome, dyslexia, ADHD, autism, Tourette's. There's a multitude of, I suppose, labels of terms that they can see that their brain functions in a different way. It processes information in a different way. It and so when we talk about neurodiversity in general, we're kind of capturing all of those brains, and really trying to bring awareness to the greater people, and not just on a school level. We're talking in work situations, on a community level, and just a greater understanding to people in general to understand that. And I think the thing that's important to remember about neurodiversity as well is it's not always visible.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing about it, is that expectations and assumptions can be made about people who are neurodiverse. Because there's no necessarily physical, it's not like you have a broken leg. Nobody's going to make you walk if you've got your leg in a cast. Well, unfortunately, if you are neurodiverse, and I shouldn't say unfortunate, but sometimes people make assumptions or expectations about you without really understanding how you take what your strengths, and how to work with that person, either in a work situation or in a classroom environment or in a community environment. And I think in general, the basis of humanity, a lot of people can be quick to judge. I know, maybe I was similar as well way back when. I think I'm a very different, having gone through a personal journey now, I would be a very different teacher today than probably I was, 15 years ago. And I think it's just the nature of human beings to sometimes be judgmental. And so being more aware of that, I think you learn to maybe have more patience, to have more grace, to just maybe stop and pause before making assumptions or judgments about others. And I think that's the biggest thing to kind of take away when you're talking about neurodiversity. I mean, I can give you a prime example of recently, in recent years, I was looking for somebody to do some work on our home, and I was recommended by a neighbour. This one person, they were like, they're really good, their work is great, and I really trusted this recommendation. And I kept reaching out to this person and finding it difficult to converse or catch them on the phone. But yet when we finally kind of managed to get things organised and, through text message and stuff, they came out, they did an incredible job. I was really pleased. But as I met them, having my own now personal experience, I realised I think this being on the phone and having conversations is maybe something that is could be tricky for that person. And I didn't judge or cut him off. And I was really happy that I had given the time and patience and grace to move through it. And rather than just say, well, he's not organised or he's not, so I think that's what being neurodiverse aware, it's giving people a chance.
Mm.
You being associated with the school system,
Yeah.
why do you think paying attention to this topic in the school system is important?
Yeah. I mean, the main reason is that we talk about, so educational theory and pedagogy and research has all moved on, and we really talk about having inclusive classrooms and inclusive buildings. And I truly believe that's the way we should be running our schools. I think traditionally, the traditional approach to education doesn't always accommodate or allow for that. And there have been many kids who have gone through the various, school systems and they have essentially experienced trauma, or have come out of it the other end, with a bad experience. And that's something they can be working on through their adult lives. And we, in this day and age in particular, we talk a lot about mental health for our teenagers. And so I think it's really important that we start putting neurodiversity at a lot at the center of when we talk about our educational practices in the classrooms, not just for our students, for our staff too, because no doubt we absolutely have staff members who are neurodiverse. In the hope that, because the whole idea is, if you're accommodating them, you're accommodating everyone. What's right for them will be right for everybody. And so I think we're in a transition, right now, of trying to find what are the best practices for being a truly inclusive district. And so we're working hard through various ways, through professional development, through our policies, through we're going to be doing an equity audit to really try and support everybody's needs. And so it's important, because the thing is, not everybody learns the same way. And I think the really traditional approach for learning has been, rote learning, lots of writing in the front seat rows, that traditional approach that we all know well. And we're learning more and more that, our kids need different approaches to teaching these days. And I'll be honest, I do think the classroom of today has maybe a lot more expectations, a lot more pressure. We also have less movement time in our schools. So our kids, say if you have ADHD, you need movement pretty consistently throughout the day. On average, kids in the 60s in the 80s had about 60 minutes of recess time, and that unstructured playtime is really important. Per day. It's now down to like 20 is what they're saying is the average. And so, we've really got to adjust if we know these kids aren't out getting as much energy out. And I truly believe that unstructured playtime is actually vital for especially younger kids' development. Then we have to figure out ways to accommodate that in the classroom, because those kids will just need to learn and move in a different way. And it might be, they do their writing on the floor. It might be, I'm really struggling with this approach to this topic. Maybe I'm going to do it as a project or a presentation. And that's kind of what the school district have been working on, is UDL, Universal Design for Learning. It's really the golden research, practice of trying to create a classroom environment that is inclusive for everybody in all brain types and how they learn, be it if you've ADHD, you've dyslexia, dysgraphia, Down syndrome. And the UDL approach is really bringing choice into the classroom, and you're finding teachers maybe becoming more facilitators than teachers. So
Magali Ronan, who's the Curriculum and Equity Director, mentioned that to us in the context of other things, in the context of education related to the Holocaust and other approaches to broadening the curriculum. A couple things I wanted to ask you about, and I think I know the answer to this, but you would say that we've come a long way. Yes?
I think so. I mean, I've only been there 3 years. I will say my experience in Ireland and the UK was very different to the American system. I think Ireland and the UK, and I will say probably Scotland in particular, they actually put education as their top priority and have put a lot of emphasis on educational research. But I do think COVID probably actually also pushed a conversation on over in the country. I mean, public education is a huge mammoth of a machine, and I just kind of focus on Westford, but I do think there's a shift and there's a change in understanding of our classrooms need to change, and our school buildings need to change. We're going through feasibilities, or we did a feasibility study at the moment, even just how buildings need to be. You need more flexible learning spaces, you need more space for extra supports like speech and language therapists, occupational therapists. So the face of how our schools are changing, but we're definitely on track. We're making progress. Yeah.
What are some activities that are planned in the near future that will actually show some progress towards the goals that you are talking about from the neurodiversity standpoint?
I think, one of the things is last year, we actually kind of brought the idea of Neurodiversity Celebration Week to the schools. And the week was, we gave the teachers autonomy to kind of say, based on your class, could you embrace this somehow? And they loved it. They had a week of read alouds from some of the younger kids. There's a whole host of books, about various neurodiverse topics. There was discussions in some classes. I know at the high school they put up posters all around the high school about some various famous like celebrities and well-known people kind of, saying, I have dyslexia, I have ADHD. I mean, Billie Eilish, the famous one, has Tourette's. And it's really to try and get people thinking. And so they embraced it so much last year that the schools actually, the principals this year, put Neurodiversity Celebration Week into their school improvement plans for this year.
That's an achievement, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something they've embraced and they're going to do again this year. And so, I think it's just taking a moment to have the conversation, because I think once you keep having the conversation, more people will, learn more, will be aware of it more. And I think you can't force it. It's just something over time, you hope more and more people will engage in the process. So, and the school committee, I suppose, we talk about equity a lot. Equity is the basis of our district improvement plan. It's, our superintendent goals, our school improvement plans. So when we talk about equity, students who are neurodiverse and staff are part of that conversation. So it's at the forefront of how we do it. And it comes down even to, we're doing professional development this year in restorative practices and collaborative problem solving, which are two kind of educational approaches to discipline. And one of the kind of statistics you will often see is students who tend to be who are up in front of the principal more often for disciplinary issues often tend to be kids who are neurodiverse maybe, and sometimes more traditional methods of discipline do not work for these kids, and in effect can have a negative impact on them. So by doing this professional development in restorative practice and collaborative problem solving, it's a new approach that embraces everybody. So there's a lot of happening around all of that. It doesn't always specifically target neurodiverse, but it absolutely encapsulates everybody.
It may remain to be seen if making sure that you can effectively engage with and teach kids who are neurodiverse, does that improve the entire curriculum? Does that add value to the entire approach to education generally? In other words, being more sensitive to learning styles. Yeah. Does that sort of add this really nice layer of responsiveness to the approach?
I think it just creates an atmosphere in the school that is a safe learning space. I mean, we talk about trying to spark joy in learning, and I think the way we are now is that we are lifelong learners. We don't just stop learning when we graduate college. So many people will continue on to do masters or they'll retrain. So I think what we've got to do in our schools is really create this spark of learning and just learning how to learn. And I think when you have teachers, and there's so many different methods you can, we have some special education teachers who are general ed teachers now. We have co-taught classrooms where we have a special education teacher with the general education teacher working together. There's so many different approaches to creating these inclusive schools. I think really for everyone, it just changes the ethos, the vibe of a building. And I think that's where longer term, as we embed this more and more, and really focus on that social emotional aspect, which is for every student. I think you're going to see a shift in the buildings, and again, I stress, not just for students, for our staff members. We have phenomenal teachers in this district who they themselves are neurodiverse, and sometimes they need supports in different ways. They need, so it's important that we're also aware for them that they feel they're in a safe space, that they're in an inclusive work environment, because like we keep saying, this isn't just about schools, this is about the work environment, somebody recognizing you for your strengths and not necessarily quote unquote your deficits or things you can't do. So yeah.
These days, there are, as you just said, that there are more and more talks, either in corporate world or in general, about neurodiversity. Why do you think that there is so much of chatter about it, and why now? I mean, I really feel that this is, and again, my next question is it like the new hot topic or the topic in the moment, and then we will move on to something else after a while? I'm not sure. Tell me.
I think there's always hot topics. That's the nature of it. But I don't think the conversation ever ends. I mean, when you think about it, there's so much more research, and there's so much about the brain we just don't even know now, but there's so much coming out, year by year in research. And I think that's just the nature of humanity, to understand the human body and what makes us tick and how we function. I don't necessarily know if it's a hot topic, as opposed to this is something with the way society has gone with social media and the pressures and high expectations, that we need to maybe pause for a moment and actually have this conversation. And I don't think a lot of people are asking, really the ask of a lot of people with neurodiversity is, work with me. Don't see me for me, as opposed to making a judgment. That doesn't cost you any money. It doesn't require any program. It just asks you to stop for a minute, see my strengths, and don't write me off. And I mean, and for example, within the working environment, Anjali, we're seeing, a move, say, within the area of people who have dyslexic thinking, as they're kind of calling it now. A lot of bosses and CEOs and leaders within the commercial, workforce are saying they're finding people with dyslexia have really creative, out-of-the-box thinking. And often when they have a team that there needs to be problem solving, or there's issues that require a different approach, they're finding having people with this mind or brain on that team is being really helpful and valuable. There's been really some really interesting studies done in Australia. Australia is doing a lot of work in this area, and looking at teams in some commercial banking and financing companies, where they're finding the teams that have people with autism on them are performing better and hitting numbers. Don't ask me what those numbers are. I'm not financed that way, but they are performing better than their more neurotypical teams. And it's just because their brains and have different strengths. And that's the whole point of neurodiversity in that commercial aspect of, is embracing, going, you know what? This guy, Joe, is going to be really good at this because this is a strength of his, as opposed to maybe sitting there and assuming, well, and again, this can be stereotypical. He doesn't have great social skills. He's not very talkative. And yet you might want him on the team for his analytical skills. So I think that's the whole point of neurodiversity. Kind of really, it's just trying to have people approach it differently. So I'm hoping it's not when we say a hot topic, I don't think it's going anywhere, Anjali. I think, our brains are here to stay. It's the nature of it. And I think I mentioned to you before we started recording, there is a school of thought that there's a lot of neurodiverse brains out there that have been in existence through the evolution of mankind, that this isn't something that just has popped up, that in fact the changes or differences in the brains actually were a evolution of kind of survival for humankind. So I don't think it's going anywhere. We just have more social media, so we can talk about it more.
It reminds me of different discussions about other situations where it's more about where you are on a spectrum of ways that you might think and the way that you might process information. Talking to you, I think Anjali might have the same impression, Catherine, that you could advocate for this all by yourself. given your articulateness and your drive, but you haven't, right? You work with others. So tell us about your advocacy for this and how you work with folks how you worked and continue to work with folks on this.
Well, as I said, I mean, this came to me through our own personal family. We are a neurodiverse house, and there was, a learning curve for me too. But what actually really kind of brought me there was I got involved with the CPAC in Westford. And
CPAC stands for?
The Special Education Parent Advisory Council.
Thank you.
And the CPAC is a state-mandated group that all school districts must have. And they are a group of parents who advise and work with school committees and superintendents, but also work as a tool for communication, resources to parents who have students or in the schools with various isms, as I generally say. And so in being involved with CPAC and, speaking to other parents and the experiences maybe some of them had been experiencing in schools, and maybe it really came to the forefront through the various discussions that we really felt that maybe there wasn't an understanding, kind of a wider understanding across the district for what this meant and some based on some experiences, unfortunately, our kiddos were having. And so I came across this article last year about it's International Neurodiversity Celebration Week. It's an initiative that was started she was then 16, a 16-year-old girl in England, and she herself has a number of neurodiverse brains. I suppose there's a few there, and she just started this kind of cause as a way to say, yes, be aware that these are my maybe restrictions in some areas, but also celebrate my strengths. And this is kind of going globally. It's getting more and more. Forbes magazine actually did a whole article on it last year. And so I brought it to CPAC going, I think this is a really awesome way to bring awareness and to celebrate our community. And so last year we just tried it with the schools. It went so well. This year we're kind of reaching out more to the community. And so we did an article in Westford Neighbours magazine, which featured a number of parents and people who are neurodiverse in our community. And it was a fabulous article.
It's the most recent.
It's the most recent one. It's out right now. So if you didn't get it delivered to your house, find someone who did, because I have to say I'm really proud of all the members who took part. They were just a variety of young and I'll say older, not old. And some are parents and some are neurodiverse themselves. CPAC is also in conjunction with our Representative Jim Arciero are hosting the first and hopefully annual neurodiversity community Lego build on March 22nd at the First Parish Church Hall. And what we have is Suzanne Eaton is who's one of our Westford residents. She used to work for Lego and is essentially like what they call the master builder. And she works with this group that they go around doing these community builds. So we are going to be creating a 3D sculpture made out of Lego, and everybody of all ages can come in, and she will give you the Lego and say where to put it, and together we should build. What we're doing this year is the logo it's the infinity loop for neurodiversity, but we're also going to have the CPAC there for anybody who wants to come in and find out informations. We're going to have some refreshments. We'll have a kind of a quiet corner, for some people who maybe just need a little bit of rest time and quiet space of their own. So we're really kind of doing a little bit of more community awareness this year. And so we've been really excited to kind of see where it goes. But the Select Board has officially designated March 18th to the 24th of Neurodiversity Week in Westford. So the town is realising it is celebrating it more this year. So this is year 2. We'll keep going after this.
And this sounds like a very exciting event to bring the community together and bring the awareness to the community as well.
Yeah.
So, good going, Catherine.
Oh, we'll see.
Congratulations for that achievement on the 22nd.
Yeah, yes. And I suppose just to say, I mean, I'm very aware. I'm only organizing. There's so many people helping. I mean, you guys are doing this podcast. We had so many people take part in the article. Suzanne is really running the event, the Lego building event. So, there's so many other voices out there that are helping and taking part. So it is a joint effort. But so yeah.
Any closing comments, Catherine?
No, just thank you for having me. And, if you are free on March 22nd, I really would encourage everybody to come down to First Parish. You two, definitely. I want you building some Lego.
And then, did you say that you are on the verge of completing 3 years with school committee? Is this election year?
It is. Yeah. 3 years they have flown by. And for some reason, I've decided to go back for more punishment. So, yes, so I am up for re-election this year. But I love it. It's been an amazing experience. And we have such an awesome group of people. And I love working with the district. So.
Good luck.
Thank you. I'll need it, I think.
We're so glad you could join us. And before we close, we also have a programming note that we wanted to convey. We hope people will go to town meeting on March 23rd.
Absolutely.
It's an important aspect of the way we work together in town.
Mm-hmm.
We have we want to urge folks to go there, but we also want to urge folks to oppose Article 22. And by doing that, we would retain Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday of October. Mm-hmm. It is our hope that the voters, the folks who go to town meeting, will honor the ballot question, which last May placed on that day, the second Monday of October. Indigenous Peoples Day is the only holiday celebrated on that day. So we want that to be retained. So thank you.
Awesome.
And I guess we're ready to close and say goodbye.
Thank you, Joe, for making that last closing comment, which was very important. So my urges, my ask from the town residents is show up on March 23rd.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to say thank you to Catherine for being our host today, talking about a very important topic as neurodiversity. And we wish you good luck.
Thank you so much. Thanks a million, guys. This is an awesome podcast. I'm loving what you're doing with it. So keep it up.
Okay.
It'll eventually be number one on iTunes, I hope.
Thank you.
At least we want people to listen. Yeah. That's what we're after. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.